the lives we've lived have been very different. And yet, here we are, these two guys, and John could have said most of the things that I just said, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to give you the floor, John. The talking stick is in your hands.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
In some of the takeaways from the 10,000 things, now is our common sense. A thought is transient. Looking for now is the silliest thing imaginable. You can look for now for 10 years, 20 years, forever, and it's still just as silly. Now is pathless. I mean, it's just pathless. I find existence and now in sentience all the same. And even the word now really can't touch. Post-fusion. When I reread Robert's book a week ago, because I hadn't read it in a year. I reread it. One of the things that came to me while other people in this sector of thought or whatever, they offer an extrication from what is, some way, and it seems like to me it creates spiritual wannabes. Can you imagine a now wannabe? It's so silly. But when Robert removes those pacifiers and those structures and questions these beliefs, rather than an extrication, awakening into now is a radical fusion with everything. The lines around the cutout paper doll that we think of who we are gone. It's seamless. And there's no need to paint a picture of what that is, because it's impermanence. It can't be painted. It can't be held. And somebody suggested something about knocking the K off of something, and about knowing the truth. Knock the K off of that one. Now is the truth, not knowing the truth. It's the mind, as Robert points out, cannot grasp that impermanence, that it cannot be done. Accepting that, accepting there's no escape hatch. That storyline is over. It is what it is, it's transient. But that residuum, when Jesus speaks resurrection, is becoming now, becoming sentience, becoming existence. And it fused with everything. So there's no extrication. All these courses and everything I see out there are all about ways of extricating yourself. And the dreamer and the dream are a match set. They come and go together, and you can't take one away from the other. And to try to explain in a language what that awakening is can't be done. So those who want the answers will be creating false answers for themselves. And there never is an answer. Speak to Jorge for a moment. I've been through a lot of those domestic situations, and I'm no worse off for it. I think I'm better off for it because I wound up with a woman that I've been with for 40 years now, and I'm sure glad that natural cohesion ruled where I thought I wanted to cling and hold on to something. So I would say my counsel would be acceptance and see what happens. But those kind of pains can break your heart open, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's all I got to say.
Thank you so much for that, John. What a great statement. I'm so glad that's recorded. That's going to be great to put on YouTube. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Neville, I hear you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for your work. I've found it really refreshing. I liked your comment on a little while ago when I was talking about Krishnamurti, and you said, I think I might even be able to make him laugh. I thought that was good, because the more I the more I read what you say, but the more I just look at a lot of things that you're talking about, I come back to, I have to come back to people like Rumi and that, where, there is no sense anymore. There's just, I can really start appreciating black humor and just the delight of just existence. But just being here today, there was a question earlier on. Well, I had a question earlier on about, I'm not sure what you said, but it was about meditation. But as I understand it, you're saying that I guess you're in a position of neither confirmed or deny about meditation, and its usefulness. And I think you were saying that it's not really useful if you think it's going to get you anywhere. But I have this feeling with meditation that, like a regular practice of meditation, that if it's a really deep meditation and you touch that silence, there is like a resonance there that stays with me that I take into the day, and that's useful as opposed to if I don't meditate. What would your comment be on that?
Okay, thanks for the question. Forgive the lozenge, I'm experiencing dry throat here. You see, that's a very deep question, Neville. The first question that comes to mind is, why would I be some kind of authority on something that you find personally useful?
Well, you made a comment that that you didn't think meditation was useful or something like that.
For myself. As
Right.
I think that throughout the 10,000 things, I assume that you've read some of that.
Yeah, a couple of times.
Okay, beautiful. Well, I tried as best I could at the time to make it clear that it was a personal confession, not
Mm,
not a guidebook. I
mm,
think I said that very, very often. But I understand that it's hard not to see freedom and want that person's experience to somehow indicate the method. But
yeah.
it doesn't work that way. So if you are getting something from meditation that you find helpful, this is your mind. I'm not going to sit here and diss that or argue against that. That was never my intention. Here's what I pointed out in the 10,000 things, but I don't think you fall into this category. I know you don't. I know, I don't know. I'm pretty sure you don't. I was talking about the kind of person who becomes a skillful meditator with a process. The process may involve deep breathing, noticing the breath going past the nostrils, whatever it is. That is very hypnotic, highly hypnotic, to be one-pointed. Okay, I don't have to belabor that. I'm just saying that when you're doing that, putting yourself in this altered state, which you enjoy, and I understand that. I enjoy it too. Be careful what you believe while you're doing. Be careful what you believe about that. Otherwise, what I've seen happen, and I wrote a chapter about this, a meditator becomes more and more skillful and more in touch with this kind of joyful separation from the world. That creates a split in the psyche. And now this person is addicted no longer to reality or whatever the question was that got you started, but to pleasure. It's just a higher pleasure. See, it's just more acceptable to the spiritually judgmental, hierarchical function, where now I'm not looking for pussy, I'm looking for enlightenment. See, it's the same process. So exactly the same process with the same payoff.
Yeah, I went through that addiction phase. And I think what brought me out of it was I started to find sometimes I'd be tired and I'm too tired to get up early in the morning and meditate. But I started to find when I was aware that I was too tired to meditate and get out of bed to meditate and had to be in my formal meditation and all that. I was still locked into formality of meditation and things, and that in that state between waking and sleeping and waking, there was these insights when there was acute awareness, and I started and that awareness would flow on into the day. Something would happen where that awareness was really quite phenomenal. And so I started setting a couple of alarms so that I would be in this state of waking and dreaming. And I didn't tell, for years, I did this. I didn't tell people about it because I thought it was a lazy man's meditation, but it was really, until someone said, well, that's a very valid technique. But and that was one of the things that broke away this formality or the need to have a place or position or any sort of paraphernalia for meditation, or the fact that I was going to gain or something from it, and it kind of all fell away from there.
Okay, and yet you asked me for my opinion.
Yeah, well, because I had this thought that some people, you said some people are annoyed that you're not promoting meditation.
Oh, okay. Well, see, that's
Yeah.
okay. That's a very difficult issue. But just to go back to, see, no one ever said this better than Jiddu Krishnamurti. Be a light unto yourself. That's what I say about whether you meditate or not. Really has so little to do with any of this. Just be a light unto yourself is what I say. However, whatever you need to do to have that happen, that's really important. But okay. I don't soft pedal my words. If someone, and I've warned people many times, if you ask me a question, I will reply. And I don't really care about your feelings. I'm not cruel. I'll try to be as gentle as I can. I'm trained to be. But I will not let that requirement stand in the way of giving a factual answer.
Yeah.
The rest of my life, I have devoted to speaking without forked tongue. It's a unified tongue. It's a non-duality tongue. So I just say what I see. But people of all different levels of understanding and intellectual abilities are hearing the same words. And so what I say is being understood in so many different ways. And I'm aware of that, and it makes me feel sad.
Yeah.
Okay? I do the best I can to bring clarity to this, because to go back to the conversation Danny and I were having for a moment, no, I'm not going to get there. I do the best I can to bring clarity to my words, but they will inevitably be understood. So here's the facts of the matter. If someone is walking around in an absolute daze, Vipassana meditation would be a great thing. Great thing. I would tell that person, sit down here now, shut the fuck up, and just notice whatever you feel and think. Just allow it to arise. Just breathe deeply. There's a good technique. And I could teach that, and that'd be meditation. It's very good for certain people at certain times. And it might be good for some people, and you might be one of them for a lifetime. That just might be not so much a practice, but just the way someone else might like coffee and cream or something. It's just something you enjoy, being in that posture. Yes? See, but...
Yeah. No,
But in between, so I'm going to put you in that category. I really will. So in between, because I somehow intuit, I'll put you in that category. Then there's the beginner who really needs to be taught to notice I'm here at all. And then there's the vast middle. And in that vast middle are so many people who are hypnotized, not just by the trance they were put in childhood, but now by their spiritual practice. And those are the people I'm addressing when I make these comments about meditation. Stop your fucking meditation and come alive for 5 minutes. This world is not completely fucking imaginary, is what I'm telling those people. I don't think you need to hear that.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people, I say, who really need to hear that. I wish they would. Because right now, I'm going to go back here, continue this rant back in the early 90s, 1990s. By that time, I was pretty well established in this understanding that I bring here, but much younger, much less suffering, much less ability to meet the needs of others, or desire to do that. But back then, the word non-duality was never really used. Very rare. People didn't talk that way. And it became a fad quickly. And I saw the thing as a product between 1990 and the year 2000 or 2005, this became an entire marketplace. It was a brand, and everyone wrote a book about it, and everybody had a website about it, and they're all talking bullshit. I'm not saying there's no such thing as non-duality. It's actually a Platonic ideal, if you know what that is. It's an idea of perfection that the human being holds, and this world we live in is taken to be a reflection of that ideal model. That's a metaphysics. If you want to have that one, fine by me. But my life is filled with duality, and I'm happy to indulge in it. And I don't like this idea that all of this is just a dream. I find it poisonous and self-destructive in the extreme. In fact, I find the idea of non-duality as a product to be a form of nihilism. These people are selling rat poison that they themselves have swallowed. And they are trying to tell us that our pain is only imaginary. And I'm not buying it. And I'm someone who has to live with pain, not just the broken arm. I just am. And I'm okay with that. It's not what I'm talking about. Talking about something different. This spirituality jag that everyone is on is what I'm talking about. Swear off it if you can. It doesn't lead anywhere. You're here. This is it. When you meditate, meditate. Have a great time. Enjoy it. It's beautiful. I'm not saying I never meditate. Maybe I do. I'm not saying I don't or I do. I don't want to be any higher on the pedestal than I already am. It's crazy. I want to get off it entirely. So spare me. We're all just human here, Neville, is what I'm...
Yeah, I get that. Okay. And I just wanted to clarify that point, really, because I guess meditation is a bit of an addiction for me. I really do enjoy it. It's like I had a Vaita Vedanta teacher here I live in Christchurch in New Zealand for about 8 years, and then he went back to the UK, but he it was like your thing with the humor of Krishnamurti. He was quite dry, and I loved activities like chanting. You know, I used to go to chanting things, not because I thought that would get me anywhere. I just loved it, and it brought me great bliss. But he used to say, well, there are levels, you know, of what you can do, and way down the bottom is chanting. But I just kept chanting because it's like meditation. I love it. It just, yeah, it's part of that aliveness you talk about.
Well, see, we each have our own beautiful interiority that we. That's what I wish the lying would stop about that. All this, the non-duality and the ego, kill the ego, all that. We're really, all of us who are sitting here in this meeting, focused on our interiority. We're either enjoying it for what it is or feeling what we feel. That's what we've got. That's all we have. Don't legislate it out of existence. That's not what it means to be awake. See, that's a fantasy that's been... Okay, well, Krishnamurti, see, he was a great man. I love Krishnamurti because he was an intellectual in a way that I'm not at all. Very dry. And he had been programmed to be the leader of the world church, whatever it was called. And he couldn't help himself. He had to do that. But he did it. He disarmed himself while he was doing it. And I think that was heroic, really. He was really a hero. And he was a kind of a monk or something, you know. He had a sex life, but he was a dry son of a bitch, but very smart.
Hey, have you read much of Rumi?
Oh, I read Rumi long ago, and also Mirabai. I don't know if you know the poetry of
Yes.
Mirabai.
Yes.
They're great. Wow, I'm going to get bad mail. I find Rumi sophomoric. I know people think it's profound, but as I reflect on it, I can't read it. He's projecting all of it outwardly, and it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I wish that he would speak personally and not about the beloved and all that, because I understand the cat was a bhakti and couldn't help himself. You and I were talking about this earlier. But for me, that doesn't really work that well. I just want to talk to you, not you.
But surely the beloved's this aliveness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
oh, well, that's just my taste, Neville. I'm not saying that. Yeah. You asked me what about Rumi. Yeah. This is the literary review.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's not what I would read. I've read it. It's not something I'm going to read any more of. In fact, one of the things I dislike about Facebook is that people stick these quotes in your face after you've already decided years ago that I never want to read anything by this idiot. I get a lot of that. Thanks for being here, Neville. I'm enjoying the conversation with you.
Thank you,
Robert. It sounds to me like you're really well cooked, man. Don't worry about it.
I'm enjoying life anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because really, this is so sad. And that's why we have to laugh. It's really very sad. I don't mean it's just sad, but life really is a long goodbye, you know, and all our powers are laid to waste along the way, and we suffer while that's happening.
Yeah, it's sad.
And I only reiterate this because there aren't that many people saying it.
Along with that sadness is all the longer I live, a lot of black humor that keeps the mirth bubbling along.
Well, whatever defense mechanism you use, humor is one of the higher forms. So congrats on that. I like that too. But the truth is, what John Troy mentioned earlier is it's so impermanent, we can't even comprehend how impermanent it is. So all of these theories, and Robert Saltzman talking about how he sees it and all the rest of it, that's only at best sublimation of our fears.
Mm-hmm.
Yes? In other words, we have this fear. There's no point in saying, I have no fear, unless you really don't have that fear. When you really don't have the fear of death, when you really don't have the fear of being incapable of caring for your own bodily needs, all of the rest of that, when you really don't have that fear, then you can talk. Otherwise, this is sublimation, all of it. It's entertainment. And what we really need to do is understand how short a human life is and how the end of it is probably not quite as, what's the word, serviceable as the honor years were in terms of having experiences. And so the time to have the experiences is when you're young enough to really fully participate in them, because they become the grist for the mill of your wisdom body that you need when you're old and in pain. And this is what I'm trying to share with the universe. And so that's what I said to Danny before, to get his feet wet. So this is not about you, that my criticism of meditation is when people escape into that. Why? are you really sure that that experience of a blank wall is what you need to stare at? What happened to Milady's quince? Maybe you'll regret it later. I have a friend who is a Zen guy. He's a noted teacher. I won't mention his name. And he spent his entire 20s in a Zen monastery staring at a white wall for 10 hours a day. And I mentioned this in the book, and I asked him what he had gained. And he said, I got really good at staring at walls. Right? He's got a dry sense of humor, not as dry as Krishnamurti. He's got a dry sense of, and he was speaking ironically to some extent, but not entirely. He'd missed out. And see, I'm sitting here now, and I know John is also, I don't feel I've missed out on anything. That's why I can't recommend meditation, because it depends on what else your life is providing. If it's just meditation, if it's just staring at the wall, I'm not too sure. That actually, to tell you the truth, I don't think I've ever said this before. I think that much splitting may be a sign of mental illness. Just a very fine madness, it can be explained away and even seems to be an advantage. I don't know if you want to really get it to a place where when you bleed, the blood is just, oh, well, you can do it.
Yeah, but wouldn't you actually say that all we have is this, acute, vigilant awareness? We are just, but sometimes the acuteness and the vigilance goes in and out in terms of where we are.
Well, I'm going to ask John Troy to jump in at this point.
Well, and can I just finish here?
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
sorry.
Meditation seems to, when you drop into that silence, it seems to have a residue that carries into the day, that just sharpens that awareness and the vigilance. And that's a useful tool, I find.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask John to comment in a moment, but that's what I was referring to before. If you find it a useful tool, mazel tov, you have a useful tool. I never said it wasn't. I hope I made that clear.
Thank you.
When I said that, it was addressed to people who are in this hypnotic trance vis-a-vis meditation. It's a place where a lot of mentally challenged and mentally ill people escape. And you can see them sitting at the feet of the gurus and everything. A lot of these kids are starving to death or whatever the fuck is going on. They're not okay. But they meditate a lot. See, I don't like that. I don't like seeing that. You're not there, so you're not the one who needs the warning. I guess I have to come clean. For me, meditation just continues. It's not that I have anything against meditation. There's no borderline. It's all meditation. As John calls it, seamless. See, it's seamless sentience. It doesn't come from anywhere. It's not going anywhere. I don't have to try to meditate. It's just not going. John, you're on. Take over, please. You need to rest.
For me, I find that meditation is not something you do. That I've got a pond out front of my house, and it changes with the weather. And there are times when everything is still, and the surface of the pond is really smooth, and it's reflective. And the weather changes, and it's not that way anymore. And I find with myself that there are times when I'm in repose and seamless with everything. And then the weather will change. And what the change, the impermanence for me of everything is a key element of beauty. There can't be beauty without impermanence. And that's a great gift. And the brain can only think of permanence in human being terms. And this is a pretty big infinite universe. And just to imagine that one could be like seeing through eyes or something like that can be a permanent thing just simply isn't true. I had a person call me one time when I was having the radio show that Robert spoke of earlier. And he called me up and he said, I listen to you because I'm blind, I can't see. And so I was going to tell him a metaphor that had to do with the movie screen and everything. And I said, well, before I ask this, let me ask you a question. What is your experience with light? And he says, I don't have any. That people born blind don't know what light is. They don't. The visuals aren't there, and that people who go blind after being born later on will regurgitate those images for a while, and then they'll disappear. And I said, well, what's your dream like? There's just sensations like music and sounds and touch. And so many of us have visionary components about meditating or light or all of this stuff that a human being born blind wouldn't even know what you're talking about. So impermanence to me is a part of beauty. It's the things happen and dissipate, and in that dissipation there's beauty. Even I'm like Robert, I've got a crowd of petty tyrants that are hitting on every part of my body, but even in the midst of all of that, and I'm laughing, sometimes moaning in pain, I'm laughing at the same time. And but there's an acceptance in that impermanence that brings a beauty that can't be caught in visuals or words. And but meditations, I know you might be meditating, maybe if you see the white light. Well, if it happens, it's going to come and then it's going to go. And whatever's new is going to get old. Doesn't matter. I mean, you may have a vision of Jesus, but it don't last long. It just comes and goes like everything else. And so meditation is something that happens. It's not something you do. And it happens as we're in repose and mature. I think awakening is a part of a human being mature. And it blooms like a flower blooms. Not every flower blooms. And that's just kind of how I see it. But the contrivance in meditating to achieve some goal or to see some light or to get into some state of consciousness is silly, because you're right in the midst of the most incredible vision that you could ever possibly have without effort, and you're wanting to replace it with an imaginary something. And it steals life away from you, in my opinion. I like to live. I like to have fun. I'm still having fun. Even when I'm hurting or in the hospital or something like that, I have fun with the doctors and the nurses and whatever, and we carry on good conversations, and everyone I have seems to be clear and caring and loving, and I still think it's a good life. I'm having a good time. I really enjoy sharing the fellowship with Robert. We go back a number of years now, and when I first read that article and invited him on our little radio show, I felt a certain affirmation of common sense that I thought clear and bright, and I've had a destiny of somehow kind of like Forrest Gump in a way. I found myself backstage with all of these guys, from Ramana Maharshi to Papaji to Muktananda, many nameless people, many backstage situations. And it's different backstage than it is on stage. And I've had good backstage with Robert and Katanya, and it's good, and it's genuine, and it's real, and it's human. And I love friends like that. As I wrote about Robert's book, it's a mountain of common sense and a sea of superstitions and beliefs, much like Ramana Maharshi was in his time and place, and speaking to the audience who understood a certain mythological framework of existence. Ramana would edify that and bring common sense to it. Same with Papaji, same with most backstage sincere people. Other backstage situations, it's all about branding, and branding is something I know a lot about, and they're just doing brand work, building a brand, and it's like Robert was saying earlier, they know that secret. Say something over and over and over again, and it becomes the truth, and you drive that brand home. And it's just branding. Jesus is just a brand. Muktananda is just a brand. Ramana Maharshi is just a brand. Some have logos. The first one that addresses a new category gets that position in the mind, and the door closes. That brand wins. Same in music. So it's just branding going on with a non-duality. I went years ago, I went to the non-duality conference, one of its earlier years, and I've been to a lot of trade shows in my life, and it was a trade show, straight up. The whole infrastructure, everything was just like a trade show with brands. So the brand puts extra added value that is fictitious on that, so to get your attention. And I say don't buy it. It's just a brand. Buy the generic, because you don't see the branding going on with sincere people backstage. You just don't see it. It's a vision of equality, not hierarchy. So that's my wrap on meditation.